Hello and welcome to my report for American Government class at Bethany Lutheran College. Today I will be presenting to you about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is currently 76 years old and was born on September 8th in 1941 in Brooklyn, New York. Education. He obtained a bachelor's degree in political science in 1964 at the University of Chicago. Marital status. He married Deborah Schillings Messings in 1964 and had a son with her and then divorced in 1966. He remarried in 1988 to Jane O'Mara Sanders, who already had 3 children from her previous marriage, and he still remains married to her today. Work history. He has spent the majority of his life in politics, but before that he was a freelance writer, carpenter, youth counselor, and state employee for 12 years. Political experience. In his early days, he was active in anti-war, anti-segregation, and pro-peace demonstrations. He was then mayor of Burlington, Vermont, from April 6, 1981 to April 4, 1989. He gained a position on the State House of Representatives after his second attempt, and then after that moved on to become U.S. Senator for Vermont. Professional development. He has spent most of his life in politics, and thus has an insider's perspective on it. He has been endorsed by such politicians as Barack Obama and Harry Reid. Accomplishments. He is the most well-known Democratic Socialist or Independent Party member in the U.S. He was everything from mayor to state representative to a U.S. congressman. Office he holds. Which office? Bernie Sanders currently serves as Senator to the U.S. Senate for Vermont and has since 2007. Duties of the office. He represents the people of Vermont through his independent platform by introducing bills and legislation and serving on committees. Major goals and accomplishment. His major goals are to decrease income inequality by having Medicare for all, free state college, and a livable wage. Close corporate loopholes, increase corporate responsibility for destruction, and fund larger social programs by taxing the wealthy. That's how he plans to do everything. Party affiliation. He's an independent. Hot button issues. He fights against gerrymandering, which is where they divide the district or state into odd patterns so that one district will have a majority of one party, even though, like, the state as a whole has a minority of that party, so that they win more districts and thus can elect a person of that party into office unfairly. Fight against lobbying and political corruption. Develop social welfare programs like paid time off and universal health care. Fight for minority, women's, and LGBTQ rights. Fight for people in smaller and weaker economies like our own rural population or the people in third world countries. Strengths. He has a working class background and is very relatable to his constituents. He also sticks to his campaign promises and does not run smear campaigns like all their politicians are incredibly known to do. He even sometimes smears himself. It's kind of funny. Number 7. Weakness. He's an independent, which is challenging enough as a politician in a two-party system in America, but he also labels as a socialist, which is almost a dirty word in the U.S. He also presses for a lot of issues that are against the status quo, which isn't necessarily weakness, but rather a major challenge that he has, that he fights against. Whatever the wording. History of the office held. Past holders. The first 2 holders were Moses Robinson and Stephen R. Bradley in 1791. Flip. The position has been almost entirely held by Whigs and Republicans throughout its entire history. No, it has been, but entirely held. Ralph Lander Winston L. Prouty. Just all these really fun names. George Aiken, for some bacon. Robert Stafford, Jim Jeffords are the 5 most recent office holders in order from most to least recent. Party history of this office. Republicans have held the Vermontian senatorship for the majority of its history, with Bernie's fellow Senator Patrick Leahy being the most recent Democratic senator. The interesting thing about the senators from Vermont is that the second, session senators for Vermont have had 2 people since 1941. So, yeah, they've been serving for a long time. So, 2 different people from 1941 to 2017. Famous people who have held the same seat. The current Senator Patrick Leahy has been in several Batman movies, which is tons of fun. He was in, most recently, The Dark Knight Rises, where there was the scene where Joker takes over a party, and then there's this one guy who's like, "We won't stand for people like you," and then the Joker's like, "I hate you," and then he tries to cut him. Then there was a more recent one where he, exploded. Tons of fun. Biggest outcomes produced by the seat. It just gives its constituents voice in Congress like any other senatorship seat. Biggest problems faced by this seat. This seat is filled by people whose views do not reflect the previous trend of senators, thus they may face more opposition. This is, like I said before, completely Republican normally, and so it's kind of weird to have an independent and a Democrat for your representatives. Your thoughts. What do you like about this politician? Like everything. It's like if I ran for an office. I agree with all of his positions that I mentioned before and his goals and issues. He's an honest man who has always championed the rights of the public over the profit of corporations. He's the outsider that America truly wanted to disrupt the system, but instead we got Dumpy Trumpy over there, who only exacerbates problems and destroys things out of spite. What don't you like about this politician? I'm really finding it hard to dislike Bernie Sanders. He exemplifies everything that I think a politician should be. He also points out and tries to dismantle everything that I think is plaguing us as a nation, and then promotes what I think will help everyone as a whole. What could this politician be doing to better the chances of re-election? He seemed to be extremely well liked in Vermont, so I don't think he's going to have a problem there. I think if the percentage pollings of if you like or don't like the senator, he's the 3rd most popular in all of the U.S. So I think he would have a better chance of winning a presidential election if his base didn't have such a reputation as being naive millennials. When I tried back in 2016, when I tried to kind of promote him to people that I knew, I was always just put down as, "What do you know? You're naive. You don't understand anything. This is ridiculous." It also would help if he didn't try and win an election that has such a rigged system that has been ridiculously gerrymandered. Number 4, based on your research, would you vote for him? Why or why not? Yes, as I said before, absolutely, I would vote for him. I wish I had more votes to give and had a vote back then. I agree with him on 95% of issues, with only a few things like the military where I differentiate from him. Even in the little things like switching to the metric system, I agree with him on. 5. Closing comments. I personally feel responsible for not doing more to elect Bernie Sanders as president, and instead allowing this fried chicken dumpster fire to come to power. Even though I couldn't vote, there was still more I could have tried to do and swayed more people to his side. Instead, I folded and I stayed silent. That is why I hope that both he and I will stay to true to our values and adhere to his quote of, "Never, ever lose your sense of outrage."